When a cop laughed in a teenage girl's face after she said her mom was special forces, he never expected who would pull up 2 minutes later. Your mom? Special forces? The officer let out a sharp laugh that carried across the street like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all day. Amani Caldwell stopped in her tracks. She clutched the straps of her backpack tighter, trying to figure out whether this man was joking or just enjoying the fact that a 14-year-old girl couldn't defend herself. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. Usually, she walked the same route home from Roosevelt Middle School in Columbus, Ohio, without any problem. But today wasn't one of those days. The officer had pulled up beside her, the flashing lights of his cruiser flickering against the red brick walls of the nearby laundromat. She'd been standing near the curb, waiting for her mom to pick her up. That was all. Nothing strange, nothing suspicious. Just a kid waiting for a ride. Sir, I'm just waiting, she tried to explain, her voice wavering. My mom's coming. She'll be here in a second. The cop leaned against his car door, arms folded, his smirk growing wider. He was tall, mid-40s, with a shaved head and a voice that carried authority even when it dripped with sarcasm. Yeah? And who's your mom, exactly? Some superhero? Amani hesitated. She knew how it would sound. Kids at school didn't even believe her when she said her mom was in the military. Half the time, she kept it to herself, just to avoid the stares and teasing. But standing here, under the officer's glare, she didn't have another answer. She's in the Army, Amani said carefully. Special Forces. That was when the laugh came, loud, mocking, like he was humoring a child spinning a tall tale. Amani's cheeks burned. She hated that he didn't believe her. She hated even more that he found it funny, because her mom, Sergeant Major Renee Caldwell, was the toughest person she knew. She'd been deployed overseas, trained soldiers twice her size, and could command a room without even raising her voice. But to this officer, it was just a punchline. I see. Special Forces. He dragged the words out as though tasting the absurdity. And I guess she's driving a tank down Broad Street to get you, huh? Amani swallowed. She's really coming. You'll see. The officer straightened, brushing imaginary dust off his uniform, still smirking. All right, sweetheart. Let's wait together then, should be entertaining. People passing by slowed their steps, their eyes darting toward the cruiser and the girl standing next to it. Amani felt the weight of their stares. She wasn't doing anything wrong, but in that moment, she felt small, cornered, and exposed. But she also knew something he didn't. Her mom never made promises she couldn't keep, and when she said she was coming, she meant it. Amani's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced down. It was a text from her mom. 2 minutes away. Stay put. Her heart gave a small kick of relief. Just 2 minutes. She could handle 2 more minutes of this. But the officer didn't stop talking. He kept circling her with words, casual but sharp. You know, making up stories like that isn't a good look. Kids these days, they think they can say anything. Amani clenched her fists at her sides, willing herself not to snap back. She knew her mom would want her to stay calm. She bit her tongue and focused on the sound of distant traffic, straining for the familiar rumble of her mom's SUV. And that was when a thought crossed her mind. This man had no idea what was about to pull around that corner. But just when Amani thought the tension couldn't get any heavier, the stop took a turn she didn't see coming. The officer's name tag read D. Harris. Amani noticed it when he shifted his weight and leaned closer, his shadow stretching long under the late afternoon sun. Broad Street wasn't quiet. Cars honked, people moved in and out of the corner store, but somehow it felt like the whole world had shrunk to just the two of them. So, Officer Harris said, his voice slower now, almost taunting. You're just standing here waiting, huh? Doing nothing? Yes, sir, Amani replied, her voice low but steady. I told you. My mom's on her way. He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle. Funny, because you looked a little nervous when I pulled up. People who aren't doing anything don't usually look nervous. Amani blinked. I was surprised, that's all. You came up really fast. Harris smirked again. Surprised, nervous. Same thing. What's in the bag? He motioned toward her backpack. My books. School stuff. Mind if I take a look? His tone wasn't exactly a question. Amani clutched the straps tighter. It's just school stuff. I'd rather wait for my mom. That seemed to amuse him even more. He chuckled, shaking his head as if he'd heard something hilarious. Oh, you'd rather wait, huh? I think you're forgetting who's asking the questions here. Amani's heart thudded. She didn't want this to get bigger than it already was. Sir, please. I promise you, there's nothing in my bag. My mom... There it is again. He cut her off, waving a finger in the air. Your mom, the superhero. Tell me more about this so-called soldier. Amani's eyes flicked toward the end of the street, hoping to catch sight of the dark green SUV she knew so well. Nothing yet. She's in the army, she repeated. She's been deployed 3 times. She's trained people all over. She'll explain everything when she gets here. But Harris leaned back against his cruiser, laughing under his breath. Kid, I've been on this job a long time. You really think I'm going to believe that a Special Forces operative is coming to rescue you from standing outside a laundromat? Give me a break. Amani shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't trying to be rescued. She wasn't in trouble. But the way he twisted her words made it sound like she was lying, like she had something to hide. Do you usually talk to kids like this? She asked quietly. That seemed to catch him off guard. For a second, his smile flickered. Excuse me? I said, do you usually talk to kids like this? Like they're criminals or something? His smirk returned, but this time it was thinner, tighter. Watch your tone. You don't want to make things worse for yourself. Amani's pulse quickened. She wanted to snap back, to tell him she hadn't done a single thing wrong, but her mom's voice echoed in her head. Stay calm. Never let them bait you. Control the situation with patience, not anger. So she breathed slowly, forcing herself to hold steady. Cars kept moving, people kept glancing over, but no one stepped in. That was the hardest part. The world was watching, but no one wanted to be the one to say anything. Finally, Harris sighed and rubbed his jaw like he was tired of the game. All right, we'll wait. Let's see if this mystery mom of yours is everything you say she is. Amani stared at the street corner again, her stomach tight. The seconds dragged like hours. Any moment now, her mom's SUV should appear. She just had to hold on. But before her mom arrived, Harris decided to push the conversation in a direction that made Amani's chest tighten even more. Imani's eyes kept darting toward the intersection, desperate for the sight of her mom's SUV, but Officer Harris wasn't done with her. If anything, he seemed to enjoy stretching the silence, letting her squirm under his stare. So, he finally said, pacing slowly in front of her like he had all the time in the world, you go to Roosevelt Middle, right? 7th or 8th grade? 8th, Amani answered cautiously. Smart girl? He raised an eyebrow. Good grades? I do okay, she said, keeping her voice even. He stopped and studied her face, and Do you lie? The question landed like a rock in her stomach. No, sir. Because I gotta tell you, he said, lowering his voice just enough so she had to lean in to catch it. This story about your mom? It sounds like a lie, and lying to a police officer, that can get you in a lot of trouble. Amani's throat went dry. It's not a lie. You expect me to believe, he went on, almost laughing again, that some Special Forces hotshot is coming to pick you up like she's your chauffeur? She's not a chauffeur, Amani shot back before she could stop herself. Her words came out sharp, and for the first time, Harris's smirk faltered. Oh, got some fire, do you? His eyes narrowed. Careful with that mouth. It might impress your friends, but it won't work here. Amani forced herself to breathe. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just telling the truth. Harris folded his arms and leaned closer. Then prove it. Call her right now. Let's see if this so-called super soldier even picks up. Amani hesitated. She hated how he said it, like her mom was some made-up character from a comic book. Still, she pulled out her phone, her hands trembling slightly. She opened her contacts and tapped on Mom. The call rang once, twice, 3 times, no answer. Her heart sank. Harris said, shaking his head. Convenient. She'll answer, Amani said quickly, pressing call again. This time it went straight to voicemail. Harris chuckled. That's what I thought. You've dug yourself into a hole, kid. Best thing you can do now is admit you were lying. Amani's eyes stung, but she refused to let him see her cry. I wasn't lying. He tilted his head. Then why didn't she answer? Because she's driving, Amani said, gripping her phone like it was a lifeline. She already texted me. She'll be here any minute. Oh, right, Harris replied, dragging the words out. She texted. Sure she did. Amani opened the message thread and shoved it toward him. See? Look. She said 2 minutes. Harris glanced at the screen but didn't take the phone. His smirk came back, though this time it looked thinner, tighter, like he didn't want to admit she'd proven anything. Cute. Anybody can send a text. Amani's chest burned with frustration. She couldn't win with him. Every answer she gave, he twisted. Every word she spoke, he turned into something small. Then Harris leaned back against the cruiser again, crossing his arms like he was settling in for a show. All right, I'll play along. We'll see if your mom shows up. But if she doesn't, if this whole thing is just a story, then what? Amani swallowed hard. She didn't know how to answer that. But she knew one thing for certain. Her mom always came through. Always. But just as Harris thought he had her cornered, Amani decided she wasn't going to stay silent anymore. She pushed back, and the clash between them started to grow sharper. Amani shifted her weight from one foot to the other, her backpack pressing heavy against her shoulders. She could feel every set of eyes that passed on the sidewalk. Quick glances, people pretending not to stare too long. But no one stepped closer. No one said a word. Officer Harris tapped the roof of his cruiser, his knuckles making a dull thud with each strike. You know what I think? He asked finally. Amani didn't answer. I think you're just another teenager who got caught doing something she shouldn't. And now you're scrambling to come up with some wild excuse. Special Forces mom swooping in to save the day? That's the kind of thing you hear in movies, not real life. Amani clenched her jaw. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm literally standing here, waiting for her. He chuckled under his breath. That's what they all say. Her stomach tightened. They? Kids, I stop. You're not the first one to spin a story. Last week, some boy swore up and down his uncle was a senator. Know what happened when I checked? The uncle worked at a tire shop. Harris gave a satisfied laugh, as if he'd just proved his point. Amani's voice shook, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. That's not me. I don't lie about my mom. Come on, Harris said, lowering his voice to a teasing drawl. You really want me to believe your mother jumps out of planes and takes down bad guys for a living, and then drives across town just to pick you up from school? Yes, Amani said firmly. His smirk widened, though it no longer looked amused. It looked like a dare. Say it again. Yes, she repeated, her chin lifting. She's in Special Forces. She's trained, she's deployed, and she's my mom. For the first time, Harris's smile faltered, just a flicker. But then he covered it with a slow shake of his head. Kid, I've been around long enough to know what's real and what's not. And this isn't real. It is real, Amani shot back. Her voice was louder now, her frustration leaking through. You don't know anything about me or her. Harris stepped closer, just enough to make her stiffen. You're right. I don't. That's why I ask questions. And right now, nothing you're saying adds up. Amani pulled out her phone again, holding it like evidence. She'll be here any second. Then you'll see Harris let out a dry laugh. I'll tell you what I'll see. I'll see some tired woman in a minivan who works at an office. Maybe a nurse's scrubs, maybe a cashier's badge. But Special Forces? No way. The words stung more than Amani expected, not because he doubted her, but because he reduced her mom, her fearless, relentless, battle-tested mom, to just another stereotype in his head. You'll be sorry, Amani whispered, almost to herself. What was that? He pressed. She lifted her eyes, steady now. I said, you'll be sorry when she gets here, because you laughed at her, and you'll regret that. For a moment, the air hung heavy between them. Harris's smirk wavered, and his jaw tightened, like he wanted to respond but couldn't find the words. He looked at her, really looked at her, as if trying to figure out if she believed her own claim. And Amani did. Every single word. But Harris wasn't about to back down. Instead, he doubled down, pressing harder with questions that cut deeper, and the back and forth between them only grew more heated. A gust of wind swept down Broad Street, carrying scraps of paper across the cracked sidewalk. Amani watched them tumble, anything to keep her focus steady. But Officer Harris wasn't letting go. All right, he said, standing taller, folding his arms across his chest. If this fantasy of yours is true, tell me something about Special Forces. Go on. What do they do? What makes your mom so special? Imani blinked. I don't have to prove anything to you. That's not an answer, he shot back. You say she's this big hero, but you can't even tell me what she does? Sounds like a story you made up. Imani's lips trembled, but not from fear. Frustration burned hotter than that. I don't know everything, okay? She doesn't tell me all the details, but I know she trains soldiers. I know she's been overseas, and I know she's stronger than you'll ever understand. The words slipped out before she could pull them back. Harris tilted his head, eyes narrowing. Stronger than me, huh? Imani stood her ground. Yes. The silence between them stretched thin, charged like the seconds before a storm. Then Harris leaned in, his voice low, almost a growl. You should watch what you say, little girl. Respect goes both ways. I didn't disrespect you, Imani said quickly, her voice steadier than she felt. I just told the truth. Harris's jaw worked, his smirk now gone. He straightened and pulled out a small notepad, flipping it open with a snap. Name, he demanded. Imani froze. What? Your full name. If you're so sure you're not lying, you won't mind me writing it down. She hesitated. Thought so, he said, scribbling something anyway. See, when people hesitate, it usually means they're hiding something. And right now, that's all I see. Imani's chest tightened. I'm not hiding anything. My name's Imani. Imani... Her voice cracked as she said it. Caldwell. Harris scribbled it down, repeating it like he was testing the sound of it. Caldwell. And what's your mom's name? Or do you want me to guess that too? Renee, Imani whispered. Renee what? Renee Caldwell. Harris smirked faintly. So let's say this Renee does show up. Let's say she actually exists. If she's as tough as you claim, why hasn't she taught you not to talk back to officers? Imani's nails dug into her palms. She taught me to stand up for myself. And look where that's getting you, Harris replied coldly. The sound of her mom's SUV engine, deep, powerful, unmistakable, reached Imani's ears before the vehicle even appeared. Relief rushed through her like water breaking a dam. She turned her head, eyes locking on the green SUV, making its way through the slow traffic. Her lips curled into the faintest smile. She's here. Harris followed her gaze, clearly expecting to see nothing out of the ordinary. His body language oozed certainty, as if he'd already prepared his sarcastic line for when a tired woman in a minivan pulled up. But as the SUV rolled closer, its front grille catching the late sun, something in Harris's expression flickered, just for a split second. He didn't say a word, but Imani caught it. That thin crack of doubt. But Harris wasn't ready to admit it. Instead, he steadied himself, preparing to meet Renee face to face, still convinced he was in control. The green SUV slowed to the curb, engine humming low before coming to a stop. The door opened, and out stepped Renee Caldwell. She wasn't tall, not towering or bulky like the action figures that filled comic book shelves, but there was something about the way she carried herself, measured, steady, unshakable, that pulled every eye on the street in her direction. Her uniform wasn't on, just plain jeans, a fitted jacket, and boots, but the way she stood said everything Harris needed to know. She was no ordinary mom. Imani, she called, her voice firm but warm. You okay? Imani exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours. Yes, Mom. Renee's eyes shifted immediately to Harris, calm, direct, unblinking. She didn't ask him who he was or why he was there. She read the whole scene in seconds, the way only someone trained to assess danger could. Harris straightened, adjusting his belt, forcing a professional smile back onto his face. Evening, ma'am. I was just checking on your daughter here, making sure everything was all right. Renee's expression didn't change. By detaining her? Not detaining, Harris corrected quickly, his voice a shade higher than before. Just asking questions. She mentioned you were on your way. She also mentioned I'm Special Forces, Renee said flatly. The words landed like a weight between them. Harris blinked, his forced smile faltering for the first time. Ma'am, with all due respect, he began, but his words trailed. His eyes flicked over her posture, her stance, the quiet confidence radiating off her. He didn't need to see a uniform to recognize authority. Renee stepped closer, her tone calm but sharp enough to cut glass. You laughed at my daughter. Harris cleared his throat. I may have misunderstood. Kids exaggerate sometimes, not my daughter, Renee said, her eyes locking on his. When she says something, she means it. Amani stood silently beside her mom, watching Harris's shoulders tighten. For the first time all afternoon, he wasn't smirking. Renee folded her arms, her voice steady as a drumbeat. What exactly did you think she was lying about? Harris swallowed. She claimed you were special forces. She didn't claim, Renee corrected. She stated a fact. The street was quieter now, like even the cars had slowed to catch the exchange. Harris shifted, his mouth opening, then closing again. His confidence was draining, and it showed. Renee tilted her head, her gaze never leaving him. So you thought it was funny? To mock her? To belittle a child for telling the truth? I wasn't mocking, Harris tried, but the words rang hollow even to him. Imani spoke up then, her voice small but steady. Yes, you were. You laughed. Renee placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, grounding her. You don't ever let someone laugh at your truth, she said softly, though her eyes stayed locked on Harris, especially when they don't know who they're dealing with. Harris's throat bobbed. His jaw worked. The pale look creeping across his face was impossible to hide now. Renee finally broke eye contact, glancing down at Imani with a gentle nod. Get in the car, sweetheart. Imani obeyed, but not before stealing one last glance at Harris. His expression was stripped of arrogance now, replaced by something she couldn't quite name. Shock, maybe even regret. As she slid into the passenger seat, she heard her mom's voice again, lower now, controlled like a blade held just beneath the skin. Next time, officer, Renee said, her tone precise, assume the child in front of you is telling the truth before you decide to laugh in their face. But Harris wasn't ready to let the conversation end there. He forced himself to speak again, though his words carried far less confidence than before. The air seemed heavier now. Harris stood by his cruiser, hands at his sides, trying to gather himself. He looked like a man replaying every word he'd just said, realizing too late how wrong it all sounded when stacked against the truth standing right in front of him. Renee didn't move closer, but she didn't need to. Her presence was enough. Officer Harris, was it? She asked evenly. Yes, ma'am, he said quickly, his voice clipped, almost rehearsed. Let me ask you something. Renee's tone wasn't loud, but it carried authority that filled the space. When you pulled up on my daughter, what did you see? Did you see a child waiting for her mother, or did you see something else? Harris opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked at Imani through the car window, her small frame hunched in the seat, clutching her backpack like a shield. He shifted uncomfortably. I saw a kid waiting. Then why the interrogation? Renee pressed. Harris rubbed the back of his neck, searching for words. I misread the situation, that's all. Just trying to keep the area safe. Renee's eyes didn't waver. Safe for who? The question cut deeper than Harris expected. For the first time that evening, the silence wasn't filled with sarcasm or authority. It was filled with his own doubt. I didn't mean any harm, he muttered. But harm was done, Renee said firmly. You laughed at her. You made her feel small for telling the truth. You treated her like a suspect when she was nothing but a child standing on a sidewalk. Harris's face paled further. He looked down, unable to hold her gaze any longer. Do you have children, officer? Renee asked. He hesitated. Yes, a son. Would you want him treated the way you treated my daughter? The question landed like a blow. Harris shifted his weight, staring at the ground, his voice quieter now. No, I wouldn't. Then remember that the next time you're out here, Renee said, her tone calm but edged with steel. Because one day, it might not just be a matter of bruised pride. One day, words like yours could break someone. The words hit harder than any shout could have. Harris felt it in his chest, the sting of shame, the weight of knowing he couldn't undo what was already done. Imani, still watching from the car, caught the change in his face. The smirk, the arrogance, it was gone. What replaced it wasn't just shock. It was realization. For a long moment, Harris didn't speak. He glanced at Renee, then back at the girl in the car. His voice, when it finally came, was rougher, stripped of the bravado he'd carried earlier. I was wrong. Renee gave a single nod, her expression unreadable. That's a start. Harris stepped back toward his cruiser, his movements slower now. He opened the door but paused, looking once more at Amani through the window. She met his eyes, unflinching. This time he didn't smirk. He didn't laugh. He simply nodded, almost apologetically, before sliding into his seat. The engine started, the cruiser pulling away into traffic. Amani turned to her mom, her voice trembling with leftover tension. He laughed at me, Mom. Like I made everything up, Renee reached over, her hand firm on Amani's. And what did you do? I told him the truth, Amani whispered. And you held your ground, Renee said, her voice softening. That's what matters. Amani leaned back against the seat, the weight of the moment settling in. For the first time since it all began, she felt safe again. But as the SUV rolled away from the curb, Renee knew the lesson wasn't over. There was still something Amani needed to hear before this chapter could truly close. The SUV moved down Broad Street, the flashing lights of the police cruiser fading into the evening. Amani sat with her head resting against the window, still clutching her backpack. She didn't speak at first, but her breathing was heavier than usual, as though every second of that encounter had stacked up on her chest. Renee kept her eyes on the road, her hands steady on the wheel. But after a moment, she glanced at her daughter. Talk to me. What's going through your head? Amani hesitated, her voice small. I thought maybe he was right. Like maybe it did sound too crazy when I said you were special forces. He laughed so hard, Mom. Like it was impossible, Renee exhaled slowly. That laugh wasn't about you. It was about his limits. He couldn't see past his own picture of the world, so when you told him something that didn't fit, he dismissed it. That's not on you, Amani turned toward her. But what if I sounded like I was lying? Her mom's eyes softened. Telling the truth doesn't always sound believable to people who don't want to hear it. Sometimes, the stronger the truth, the harder it is for others to accept. Amani's throat tightened. It hurt. He looked at me like I was some kind of joke. Renee reached over, resting her hand gently on Amani's knee. Listen to me, baby. When someone laughs at you for speaking the truth, you don't shrink. You don't let that laugh define you. You hold your ground. And you did that today. I'm proud of you. Imani's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away, nodding. I was scared. Being scared doesn't mean you were weak, Renee replied. It means you're human. Courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about standing firm, even when fear is heavy. You showed courage out there. Silence filled the car for a moment, but it wasn't tense anymore. It was the kind of quiet that carried weight, like words were settling into place. Mom? Amani asked softly. Yeah? Do you think he understood? Like, do you think he actually realized what he did? Renee's lips pressed together. Maybe. Maybe not all at once, but that look on his face when I stepped out? That was the look of a man realizing he underestimated the wrong people. And sometimes, that's the first step toward change. Amani let those words sink in, staring out the window at the passing houses, each porch light flickering on in the dusk. Her mom spoke again, her voice steady. There will be more people like him. People who laugh, people who doubt you, people who try to shrink you down. But your job isn't to prove your worth to them. Your job is to know it for yourself. Amani finally allowed herself a small smile. You really are tougher than him. Renee chuckled lightly, the first laugh of the evening that carried warmth instead of cruelty. I'm tough because I have to be. And one day, you'll be even tougher. The SUV rolled to a stop in front of their house. The porch light glowed against the fading sky. Renee put the car in park and turned fully to her daughter. Promise me something, she said. What? Promise me that no matter who tries to doubt you, you won't stop telling the truth. Because truth is stronger than any laugh, Amani nodded, her voice steady. I promise. Renee smiled, brushing a loose curl from her daughter's face. Good. That's all I'll ever need from you. As they stepped out of the SUV, the night air cool against their skin, Amani felt lighter. What started as humiliation ended with a lesson she'd never forget. Never let someone else's doubt rewrite your truth. And for anyone listening, maybe that's the reminder we all need. People will doubt you. They'll laugh. They'll mock what they don't understand. But don't shrink. Stand firm. Hold your ground. Because the truth doesn't need permission to be real. If you felt this story hit something inside you, share it. Let it remind someone you love that their truth matters, even when others try to laugh it away.